contribution of all universities, and it is very much the fabric of society. And I think that this gives us a political power of concrete actions, and if we are able to organize ourselves interinstitutionally speaking. And I repeat, I believe that RUP has the necessary conditions uh, to bring us all together. And of course, we already are doing it. We are already seeing its a capacity to organize it, and it seems to me that it is fundamental. The wealth that your university has, your university or your, of course, I would like to know. I would like to know more about it because, and that's what we're going to use to become stronger together. I don't know if I made myself clear, but I think that this is a basis of our proposal. I give the floor to Jacqueline. Good afternoon. I'm going to speak Portuguese, slowly but Portuguese. I am a person of many questions, more questions than answers, and I think that I've learned part of it here at PUC-Rio. I work at PUC-Rio. I work in the Education and Language department, and the first question that I asked was, who made my body a political body? And I think that this is crucial because we are speaking of the generations that we are educating. And I would have many other questions. First of all, how can we teach our body to recognize itself as a political body? And I think that this is something that we need to teach, and I don't see it as strongly today. The second question I would ask is, being a political body, how can I recognize different political bodies that are different from ours? Because I went to the Amazon twice in my 58 years of life. But in all my vacation periods in the last 20 years, I visit an indigenous village, and I'm always trying to go there and come back. And whenever I arrive there, regardless of the year, sometimes twice or three times a year, when I am going down to a village, everything is moving where I step, but on my way back, everything remains at the same place, and my body changes very quickly. My body changes, and in some experience, I spend 1 or 2 hours just watching and talking, and in others, 20 minutes. It depends if I am alone with my family or on research.
Over time, I've become a researcher. I advise, I work with students who work in indigenous villages. And it's not uncommon for my students to come to me disappointed. They tell me, indigenous people do not answer, do not respond to me. They look at me in total silence, regardless of what I say. But over time, when on a daily, day by day, they learn a few simple things. If it interests me, I respect and I listen. For my students, disrespect turns into respect. They need to get accustomed to another political body. In one of my experiences, and I'm talking a lot about me when I should be talking about us, which is our political purpose here, to forget about the I and remember and think about the us or we. FUNAI, our institution that regulates indigenous issues in Brazil, so this institution said that HIV was increasing in a community in Paraty-Mirim, close to Rio de Janeiro, and there was no teaching materials that could help solve this problem. So we went to this community and we started to observe and try to talk and use teaching materials, but nothing worked. So we finally understood that we needed to listen and watch and observe. That group specifically drew on the earth, on the soil. So we decided to ask them what they were drawing. And we would ask them to ask how they would draw their day. So when they started drawing their day, they started drawing a little shop, like a kiosk. And they started selling in the shop, in the little kiosk. They drew a bottle with a 51, number 51 on it. So that's the name of a famous cachaça, a hard liquor. And the problem was not HIV, the problem was alcohol, because when they drank a lot, they got drunk and they went to the other village and they met with the women from the other side of the road that had HIV. So how can we bring this experience to each different reality? I work with the favela called Rocinha when I'm not in an indigenous village. A favela with 70,000 inhabitants, but actually, these are the official numbers, but there are 150,000 actually. But violence does not allow us to understand this number as a whole. So these young people who live in Rocinha have different realities that may be mirrored on that reality in the indigenous village, because there are also drugs, violence, deforestation, flooding. All of these happen there. They happen in an indigenous village and they also happen here in Rocinha. So how can we bring our universities to promote local realities that can dialogue with the realities in the Amazon? How can I do that? How can I promote this so that the bodies of our students can be more prepared to listen and to promote things as a group? In my perspective, or in the perspective of our university, I arrived here when I was 15 years old, so it is my way, so to speak. So in my perspective, we need to help our students to think through their bodies, to feel through their hands, and Pope Francis taught us how to do that. If they do that, they'll be able to go. And if they don't go, they'll be able to transform where they are, and everything will be our common home. Thank you very much.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon to all. It's a pleasure, as I said, as always, to be part of this on RUC with Augustine and PUC Rio as the host university. I'm very grateful for being here and making politics, doing politics, and discussing the goal of this day. I believe that in the morning, the question was defining politics as a concern with the common good, and I believe that this is a subject that we have to have very clear in the situations in which there is discussion about power, where there's politics and anti-politics, where I say politics because of the way we design power. I wouldn't use the word politics, but it's the management of power in which the individualism poses itself as a means of power. And it is at a clash with the university system, and it tries to implement common good politics. So we're here in a common home from the environmental aspect, but this has to do with what we said before when we talk about this social aspect. And now we have a debate that is happening worldwide with different sectors, different realms of power, and there is a discussion about politics. So if we don't think about this, we will never be able to educate for critical thinking. It will just have an exchange of value of purchase, a system that can be promoted in any jersey, and in Argentina, this is the main way to promote a company. So the cooperativism, solidarity, there is a clash between ideas and realms of power, sectors of power. These sectors want to confront us and say that universities make policies, and of course we do. I think this is clear. This is what we're saying here, and we need to propose this. It's also been said that education is a political act. In my case, in the center of Argentina, the University of Pampas is a 66-year-old public university, and we all agree that this is necessary. But there is an idea that education should be like a company, and not have this concern for the common good of our students. The second point that I would like to make before I think about this path to COP30 is that we need to think about young people, because each university, this is what we need to think about. Our goal, our objective is our students. So being in Rio, we think about Francis, and we're all very young. And in this sense, we need to find a way for our students that they become part of that they're not manipulated, that they develop critical thinking, and that they're not young people who are part of this waste culture, that everything goes to waste, that everything is disposable. And we have to think about this because the university system, because students are instructed to find their way to the labor market very fast. But what ends up happening is that these young people have knowledge that will only be good for a specific sector, specific industry. And when that vanishes, this young person will not be able to work anymore. That's why I believe that in this path to COP30, as my colleague said, my colleague from Uruguay said, is intertwined. And I would like to connect this with what would be the theme of the morning of tomorrow. There are different sectors, and we keep repeating the individualistic model. There is no social solidarity economy, because the books that we use in every single career, socio-economic careers, are books of management. They all have the same format, and none of them think about economy as in its environmental aspect. So when you throw waste in a river, from here to COP30, economy or economics is something that we need to consider, or in a sense that will allow us to take these first steps. I believe that we will need to continue working so that young people in universities, I don't know if it would be a 5 or 8 year career, maybe it should be faster, but what's important is that they graduate in a universally or with integral training or education, so that this would allow them to continue working. And one thing that we talked about, and I think it's important in this path to COP30, is something that we've been talking about in Argentina, this inclusive internalization. We need to make use of the tools that we have, virtual tools, and ask ourselves, why don't we teach with professors from Brazil to students who are in Argentina or San Diego in the United States, and talk about these different subjects and in an intertwined way, because this has to do with what we're talking about, the resources, the best use of resources. I believe that this intertwining with this internationalization is something that we could do. And professors could be one place in one university, one day in one university, and one day and another day in another. So thinking about COP30 is thinking that we can bring put our political relationship into practice. Thank you very much. I think that coincidences and values are possibly the reason why we're here. But also, I would like to highlight that there is an important coincidence in the value of this fabric that is the network. I think the great added value that we have is this network. This added value, it is this value that will be supported by this great value that we're talking about. What I heard is that many universities, as the Holy Pope would say, is that they are universities of exit. But the question I would like to ask is the following. From the standpoint of what RUC is, what are the procedures, the means that we have as a network to actually impact the political organizations? Because otherwise, we'll do just like other universities do, and we will teach, nobody would understand anything, but we're brilliant. We do our academic research, and that's it. How can we make it so our universities are no longer an exit university? How are we going to start going into some bodies such as the Congress, other executive bodies? How are we going to reach the means of communication? How are we going to leave this meeting with more friends than we had before? What do you think? Great. I think it's a great question. I thought about an element that I don't know if you share with me. I believe that we need to make use of this mapping. What is, what's the stand of each university? What do they give? What do they contribute? What is the specific contribution of PUC? What is the specific contribution of each one of the universities? Because that's where the knowing and the cognition and recognition process comes to be. Because to be intertwined, I need to know what are the parts of this fabric. I think that we cannot only rationalize this passage. It is effective and affective. So we need to be intellectually honest, because we need to think, presidents need to think, the specificity of my university is this. This is what we do. I think that this is point number one in our priority list, and I think this is a lot for us to do. Point number two would be a good systematization of some political keys. Because one thing that we have in academia is like we have 25 priorities. Wait. 3, 4, 5 well-established priorities that actually have not only a religious ambition, that have an impact, a religious impact, that would teach the human deep values that are common to all and that affect everything that is dialogic. So there are maybe a few key points that are well chosen as a process. And we also need to have a map of the international institutions with which we can operate. I believe that in this framework, we already thought about this, right? Yesterday afternoon, we were talking about this fundamental power. But I think that you cannot deny the national instance and the Latin American instance, neither the general international one, because, and also something that seems to be very important to me, related to Laudato Si, and I see because I'm dealing with protecting leaders. It's very important that the public, the private companies are notified of the steps that we take. That's why we are taking this path, and that's how we can change the policies.
But we need to clarify those private players on the national and international Latin American Caribbean level. Of course, we have to remember the Caribbean region, which is a real region. There are countries in the Caribbean that fell into the triangle of Bermudas, and they are absent for in many ways, and this is a reality also within the context of Latin America, so we should take it into account on the national and international level. I map the international institutions in which I can act. I select the most important points, the keys that are crucial in terms of incidents, and then finally not losing sight of the dialogue established through the press and networks and the dialogue with society, but also with the private initiative world that moves the economy. And of course, universities should be able to open the eyes of people, and then the information that we bring should be visible and taken into account by all instances. Well, in my opinion, we cannot separate education, research, extension. I think that in this respect. We already have the mappings, but I would include the map of young leaderships. I think that we need to recognize, acknowledge those leaders who are younger. Many of them have no access to university, and we need to promote their participation inside universities. They will transform society if this opportunity is given to them because they know the daily reality of those people. It takes them 3 4 hours sometimes to arrive at Puc University, and they are hungry, and they will be more capable of speaking of hunger than us. And in terms of investigation, I would add this point. And in terms of education, I think that we need to increase the offer of courses that have some kind of social mobilization aspect or political mobilization because we are thinking of Belem in some months. But what can we do from Belem on, and who will do it? So we need to be prepared to take part in the formation of those new political bodies based on listening to them so that we have enough institutional mobility, and then we're able to help them to expand their concepts in other universities, exchanging in this movement of exchange and deep learning. And I think that we should do it based on very fundamental values that for me are present in the extension activities. They need to do it by experimenting, including the realities that are opposed to their own reality. And in some cases, they should be able to experiment abundance, where everything is possible, but also be there where there was nothing in terms of resources available, so that we are able to understand when to work on one side and when to work on the other side, because sometimes abundance is nothing and the absence of resources is everything. So I think that if youth is brought into this mapping, we can think of an education that brings closer, that promotes this diversity, and that enables us to think together and make decisions from different standpoints. Yes, I share your thoughts, and I would say that you were asking about the Congress and media, and also this question regarding, is it from outside to the inside or from inside to the outside in terms of the university? And I think that what comes from the outside, of course, I have an experience in Argentina, and I think that in terms of extension activities and the relationship with small and medium enterprises, I think that PUC should strongly work after this event in such a way that those internal networks are kept, maintained, working in our territory with our young people and our young students, and our relationships should be cherished so that we develop more power to act in those times in which we are addressing the political issue. And it would be very difficult, in my opinion, besides these incidents towards the outside and the media. I think that the fundamental change should come from inside. Extension, as you said, is essential because many times we at universities we forget about our own place, and the territory is thus crucial. I come from economic sciences, but I think that we many times think of economic issues in a way, but we should think of the territorial reality. I agree. We should work PUC from inside with different rules that could bring actual results together with our communities, and shaping these visions that form or make possible our common home. but also the economic approach from a human standpoint. We were speaking of politics as if we were speaking of engineering and medicine, but what can we say to politicians? Because I think that there are two different missions there. One in the university domain, and but what is the message we want to convey to politicians, and how can we convey the values that we believe should be preserved? Yeah, he comes with those very apparently simple questions, but they're not easy to answer. Well, today I was very much involved in the group work, and this political citizen collaboration should be worked on. There is no relationship yet given. Should we stop? Okay. This displacement from a point in which the politicians they respond to networks and media outlets. Well, I would say that it is very much like a doctor without a patient. It's a it's disastrous, and a politician without citizenship or is a disaster. So I would say that the political is part of what we are living, and I we would like to see the influence of those big media conglomerates to be more democratized. I think that the first training at universities should be what kind of communication are we doing, what kind of communication are we dealing with, and I also think it would be very important to bring politicians to university and bring university to politicians, bringing them together, and also including the youth. And Weva also says that we are all political, and politics is part of our DNA, constitutes ourselves. And it's not a separate topic or something separate from our reality. It is part of the human being. And with this awareness, students, teachers, professors, and politicians, we have an important contribution to offer. Well, I think that political awareness is a joint path. It is a path that we take with others. It requires us to meet often, that we every month see each other, listen to each other, because everything that we say here looks beautiful, but the everyday life erases each of those points. So to be able to overcome the challenges that we face, which are bigger than us, because media is bigger than us, and the everyday life is bigger than us, and etc. We really need to establish a planning, a schedule, and so maybe with 10, 20 meetings or events, but not losing sight of whatever we wish to conquer. We need this straight intention. We need this straight intention, which is done only with two, not by oneself. So we need to plan. We need to have a very well defined planning. Yes, I agree with what you said. And speaking in general terms, when we speak of politics or politicians, usually it's to complain. But we are all political here. And I think that we should ask ourselves the same question. And I also think that we should think of our students. Are we listening to our students? And what about professors? I would really like to feel like we're doing this political exercise, and those that act on the level of cities and other levels, instances, we should invite them to be part of university activities and discussing political actions, but also following these trajectories in a non-individualistic way, so that all the students are able to think of the common home. We're now open the mic. We're now going to open the mic for questions. We do not have a lot of time, but Carlos Greco said today, and it has been repeated, you are presidents and rectors, the heads of universities in an entire continent, and the ball is in your field. So what are we going to do? We who are here, others will do other things. What are we going to do? Madam President just said that we should leave this event with a plan, something concrete, or a roadmap. How can we dream of this social reality, or dream this social dream, in order to change society? Yesterday, everyone was fighting to get the mic. Okay, so we have one hand raised. Great.
Perfeito.
I'm going to speak Portuguese, but very slowly to help those who do not understand. Professor Jacqueline, when she speaks, is like poetry. So I would like to start by saying that. And poetry and the artistic view are ways of living life, things that take place in our everyday life and all the time without pause. And I would ask you if you see this as one of the ways out in terms of what we could exercise in our daily life. Poetry, arts, they be included in this common good path? Okay, let's have an other questions. We have someone bringing art to the core of our logics. Art is fabulous to help us walk politically, not art as in some moments of history in which it was also captured by certain sectors and governments or political realities, and in a very strict way. And there are studies on the forms of paintings and sculptures at certain moments of history. But art, in all its disciplines, is a fabulous guiding light to create community, national community, international community, because it's a universal voice, a universal language. And I think that this is one of the most beautiful forms of politics. Well, where do we have art in our universities? Do we restrict it to a small box, or is it part of the languages with which we learn and acquire knowledge? This is a question we should ask ourselves. Good afternoon. Over those days, today, when we met the groups, there were some ideas raised which could be good suggestions for you, presidents of universities. I am a graduate student at PUC, and I work very much trying to give voice to the students in those activities such as this one. And one of the things that I believe are very important, and you have touched on it already, is the voice of youth, young people around because they are the reality of the future. We are always saying that. But one suggestion that I would share with you is besides taking this to COP30 with your name and the importance you have as universities and the places where you work, maybe create a group with young people from universities to give them voice. We have some groups at PUC, we have the Critical Alliance and the HDSM group that works with the UN SDSN group. And this is a suggestion because myself as a student, as well as Natalia, who just took the floor, and all other students who are here, we are a group who is very open to work with you. It's just a suggestion, but I think it would be very interesting to include the young people, especially those that are in university. I'm very privileged. I know that other young people like me do not have the same opportunities that I have. So being able to understand what they have in terms of demands would be very important. Hello, and I would like to take from the last um, intervention here and tell you what happened at RUC. At RUC, we organized a young youth meeting, and more than 25 universities participated in this meeting. And those young people, they are working and they have established a network. And these young people, they face challenges and they have targets to achieve. And I think that it would be important that those who are not at RUC would be included also. And effectively, this is a great tool that we have available. And if we have a tool, we, presidents of universities, this tool is you, the young people who are going to make a difference and who are going to carry our voice. And so I would like to say, yes, of course, we need to work on that, and you need to be included. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, my name is Sandoval. I am a Jesuit and I live in Manaus in the Amazonian region, the Brazilian Amazonian region. What happens is I've been very concerned with what we are saying here. Of course, that we're always thinking of the possibility of acting towards defending the common home and maintaining the common home in the face of all of these aggressions that we see, aggressions to nature and things that come from this throwaway culture, as we said in the beginning. But I am very worried about how these actions to defend nature and protecting our common home, how they are very much being hijacked by the development of a system implanted by capital, by capitalism.
All of our actions, we're talking about cuts, resource, cut spending, cut resources. So our actions end up being limited. Our actions to defend our common home have end up being limited by capital, by the capitalistic system. We can only move to the extent where the system allows. So I'm very concerned because if we're only going to move within the limits of the system, this means that we're only going to repeat and repeat and repeat what we've been doing. And we're never going to change the quality and make a difference. the ways we find in this so-called sustainable development is to sell water, to sell gas, carbon credits. This is all has to do with the market, marketing, monetizing. So I'm very much concerned about just revolving around what the system allows. But we've been doing this our whole lives, and the planet continues to be destroyed. Not only the planet, but the cultures and everything that we know is important. So I ask myself, and I ask you, wouldn't it be interesting? There was a question about the values that we are fostering in our society. Wouldn't it be interesting for us to create beyond the system, create other ways of behaving or acting that go beyond the limits of the capital, that is only interested in destroying and consuming? We need to create another logic that has to do with the continuation of life. I ask myself, are there other suggestions? Are there other projects to move beyond the system, to create other models of development that are not based on the accumulation of wealth and competitiveness? Thank you.
Eu sou
Good afternoon. My name is Lindomar Rocha. I am located in central Brazil, the central region of Brazil, São Luís de Montes Belos. But for 20 years, I was part of a large university with 70,000 students, PUC from Minas, the state of Minas Gerais. And for 11 years, I was the president of university centers with 3,000 students. Clearly, all of us are not only political, but are interested in politics. We know, as was said in the morning, Plato defined and compared politicians with weavers. That person who brings who weaves a fabric. So up to this day, we use this analogy to talk about the social fabric. Plato started this analogy, and he said that the problem is that the threads are different. There are thinner threads, thicker threads, stronger threads, weaker threads. So the weaver has this ability of bringing the threads together, joining the stronger with the weakest and the average to keep the fabric strong all over the place. Because if you only use weak threads on the one side, the fabric will be weaker on that side. So in this context, it is in this with this analogy in mind that we understand politics. So, but allow me to say right now that we need to evaluate politics itself right now. Not only right now, but we've had to do it for a while now. This is where the problems lie, because we've been, and during the morning where we heard about this, politics and politicians, especially the politics that holds power, because we separate politics that in action and politics in theory. The power is in the hands of those who exact power. So we've had recent experiences in the United States of unthinkable things. The largest, wealthiest universities in the world that we thought were completely autonomous and independent in their action, bent or bowed before a president that made them change their behavior, made they change their stance. Otherwise, they wouldn't get money anymore, funding anymore. So they just bowed before this president. So, in conclusion, what I mean is that we need funding, we need money to educate. We know that we need, be it public or private universities, we need funding. How do we go beyond academic excellence and open this broad space? How can we get the necessary resources? I would like to hear from you. I'm sorry if I went beyond time. This is the hardest question of all. How are we going to pay for this? Last intervention, and I would like to ask you who I would like to ask the representatives, the rapporteurs for each one of the working groups to come forward because we want to move on fast. I am a vice president of the University of Havana. When we talk about doing politics and the role of youth, I think that we need to, in our experience, I believe that another way for universities to do politics is union, is the partnership between universities and the government and other institutions. This is something very interesting that we've been doing in our country, the science, technology, and innovation. This means that the university, through all its academic and scientific and innovation processes, and also outreach and community, is part of the policy making and policy implementation, because this is critical for the development. I believe that development, it comes from the joint efforts of all the different stakeholders in a country. For example, during COVID in Cuba, our universities turned into training centers, hospitals, and the students who were there. They were helping as nurses. And the vaccines that saved our country were vaccines that were developed with the research centers and universities. And these are patents that helped us exit or leave behind this pandemic situation. So I trust in union, I trust in alliances to achieve development. So we continued to talk. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the panelists, and I would like to ask us to change the seats very quickly. And please, those who are going to represent or the groups, I would like to ask you to come forward, and we're going to start with the professor.